The last step on our sculpture is going to be adding texture.
So for this next step of refining the texture, you can see I've really kind of done a lot of carving and refining as much as my tools will let me. So now I'm going to bring a little bit of water into this process, and you can use your finger, and I'm just getting my finger a little bit damp on the sponge. I'm just kind of using that to smooth the soap. Right? I don't want to introduce a ton of water because I don't want it to necessarily get sudsy, but I might even take just my damp sponge and just kind of run it over the piece. It's kind of like I'm sanding it a little bit, right? And you can see how that's really starting to take off some of the tool marks, right? So I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on there. Just kind of working it back and forth. There we go. And you can see what that's doing to help smooth things out. That's good. And now on my sculpture, or on my sketch, this part of the sculpture is supposed to be really, really smooth. And it's going to contrast with the back side where I'm planning on carving in more texture. So I'm going to spend some time and get this a lot smoother. Although you may notice there's a point where you do need to let your soap dry out a little bit. There we go. These circular motions seem to be what works the best. So I'm just going to keep doing that. And my sponge really isn't that wet at all. It's just pretty damp. You know, it's not drippy or anything. Yeah, check that out. Look, that's really getting a whole lot smoother. I like that. Oh, see, you got some suds in there. Okay. Nice, good. That's getting a lot smoother. I like that. That's exactly what I want for that side. You may find you need to go in with your tool and smooth out an area. Ooh, I just got a ton of suds with that one. There we go. I might need to go rinse out my soap. I don't want my sculpture to get too sudsy. Those kind of get in the way. There we go. How about that? Look at that. That's looking really nice and smooth now, isn't it? Okay. So now I'm gonna flip on over to the back side, and I'm gonna take my sponge over a little bit, and you know, just kind of like what I was saying about before is like working everything kind of evenly. So I know I'm gonna carve a lot more texture on this back side, but I do kind of want to get it mostly even and mostly smoothed out, so that it's not quite like the transition between the front and the back isn't quite, I can be a lot more intentional about it, and it's not going to be necessarily defined by rough tool marks. So I'm just going to kind of smooth that, take off some of the high points. It's all about working the whole thing evenly, isn't it? I've been saying that all along. Same goes in this step too. Ugh, Yeah, you can see my sponge is really sudsy. I really should go clean that out. Ugh. Okay, cleaning break. So I just cleaned all the suds out of my sponge. There we go. Now I don't have to worry about suds all over my piece. So I'm just going to do the same thing, kind of work over the back of it, kind of like I was working over the front. Those circular motions worked the best, I thought. There we go. All right, right on. So I got this to a pretty good point. Kind of all over. And so now I'm gonna just let that actually sit for just a sec. I want that to dry just a little bit, so I'm gonna dry my hands off. Okay, and now I'm gonna add some texture onto the back of it. And so, you know, if you have some bigger chunks that you took off from whenever you were blocking parts out, like I have some thicker chunks here, it might be a good idea to use those to maybe test like what sort of texture I want to make. So I was kind of thinking like some sort of like feather-like texture. And so I'm just gonna kind of test that out a little bit on here. You see I'm kind of sculpting that in a little. Kind of look like scales, don't they? I don't know if I want scales. Maybe I'm gonna change it up a little bit. And I think that I'm gonna switch and think about like cicada wings, if you've ever seen them, or fly wings. They kind of have these little cells in them. I think that might be the texture I'll go with. Okay, so that was good to practice a little bit. And so now I'm gonna think about this, and how do I want this to go? Okay, so I'm gonna just kind of start drawing in. And so my texture, I think, is gonna be a little bit scaly. So I'm using this tool to kind of carve in some lines. And then I'm gonna go back with my sponge and kind of smooth them out so that they kind of make their own texture. I'm gonna have to kind of deal with this. There we go. I guess it is kind of looking like feathers or something maybe, but sometimes you just gotta go with that flow, right? It's art. What is the saying? Sometimes art is knowing which mistakes to keep. I think there's some truth in that. Or as Bob Ross would say, happy accidents, right? So I'm just gonna kind of keep working this texture over. I'm gonna let it be a little irregular. I'm not gonna worry too much about that. There we go. See how this is going? So I'm gonna have just this texture on the back, and so I think since it's just on the back, I'm carving a little bit deeper to make it a little bit more exaggerated. So I kind of start kind of light at the top, and I'm making my lines go a little deeper towards the bottom here. Going over some of my lines here. Get them a little deeper because I really do want this texture to contrast with the smooth side of it. See that? It's already starting to happen. Oh yes. I'm definitely kind of messing this up. Happy accidents, right? That's what we said, happy accidents. There we go. We're covered. I think this edge, this blended edge is going to be especially tricky, but we're going to give it our best shot, right? That's all you can do. Okay. I'll kind of bring the texture around the side just a little. There we go. And then we'll have like sort of that transition area. Maybe a little bit. Sorry, keep going out of frame. There we go. Just making sure the texture goes up here, so that way I kind of get that transition right around that curve. And there we go. Right. Okay. Now I think I kind of want to refine this texture a little bit. So it might be a good idea to use a paintbrush and smooth it out. I'm going to see what using my sponge does. Just to knock back some of the sharpness of the lines. Oh yeah, see the difference there? Those are kind of sharp and those are a lot softer. Yeah, I think that was the right move. And so just by kind of smoothing these in a little bit, taking off some of the sharper edges, I'm gonna get that really nice transition. There we go. Yeah, that's looking a lot nicer, isn't it? Okay, and I'm gonna go over this side one more time. My sponge, because I really, really want it to be really smooth. There we go. Okay. Nice and smooth, and then boom, texture. How about that? And so now I can set this aside and start working on my other piece.
Once your sculpture is finished, the last step is going to be final documentation. Remember, you're going to submit 3 well-lit, focused, closely cropped photos of your sculpture from different angles on a neutral background. Save these photos as JPEGs. You're going to include 1 photo of your sculpture next to a ruler, saved as a JPEG. And you're also going to upload an artist statement saved as a PDF. Make sure you upload these materials to the iCollege assignment and the Teams channel by October 26th at 11:30 p.m. Your final critiques for this project will be due on Teams on October 28th at 11:30 p.m.